Welcome, thank you for coming. Well, that's the next slide. Thank you for coming. The way we like to start off every presentation is with a selfie. So if you guys want to be in the selfie, act like you're excited to be here. Be excited to be here, ready? Cheer, yay!
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So quick introductions. My name is Kevin Flerlage. That is a picture of me when I used to cling on to what I had left, but I no longer have any. And this is Ken Flerlage. We are identical twins. We run this website, flerlagetwins.com. Hopefully you've used it. We have our sister, Kelly Flerlage, right here, wearing the shirt. She's not really our sister, but she's got like a shirt on that says so. We work for Moxie Analytics as consultants. Awesome company, small but mighty team of 6. I am a 5-time Tableau Visionary, and Ken is outdoing me by being a Hall of Fame Tableau Visionary. We at Moxie Analytics do lots of stuff, you know, the stereotypical project work, but we also do Fractional Data Hero, where you can rent us for a few hours every month, or you can just call us up on the phone and we can help you out with a sticky situation. We also do Tableau training, and on that note, in May, we'll be doing a beginner training, starting May 21st. And coming in the fall, we will be doing advanced training from the Flerlage twins. We expect it to be about 20 hours of content and to get into lots of cool topics, you know, advanced calculated fields, data modeling, non-standard charts, lots of fun stuff. I think it's fun, at least. In our company, well, we do data stuff for money. We used to say we do stuff for money, and that seems weird, so we do data stuff for money. Lots of cool stuff. This is a selfie of us last year at TC 23. Did anybody come to our session last year? All right, I see lots of hands. So if you came to our session last year, you may have remembered that we told a story. We always like to start off with a little bit of fun. So we told a story about myself, Ken, and our lovely Moxie Analytics co-leader, Serena. We went on a walk after an event down the Vegas Strip, and then came the infamous ham sandwich wipeout. If you weren't there, she literally wiped out on a very greasy ham sandwich in the middle of Las Vegas. So we're going to continue that story because, in fact, that wasn't just a random walk. We were actually on a search. We were on a quest that evening to find something called a bramble. It's a drink, right? It was a very simple thing. We wanted to find this drink. Last year, we never found it. Excuse me, in 23, we never. When was it? Whatever that year was, we never found it. But last year we went on the same quest to find that drink. But we had a few people join us. We had Josh and George and the Sarah Bartlett. Everybody knows Sarah Bartlett. So we all went on a walk. Might seem familiar. Then we went up to a bar, all 6 of us, and we said, hey, can you make us a bramble? And unfortunately, we were met with no's. And by the way, I animated this all in PowerPoint, by the way. It was a ton of fun. All right. So we went up to another bar, and Serena says, hey, we'd like 6 brambles, please. And again, we got denied. So we went to bar after bar after bar, and we're continually met with no, no, no. And that guy's really yelling at me. So luckily, we had a very kind bartender explain the reason why they couldn't make a bramble is because it was in April and they didn't have any blackberries. So, luckily, we looked next door and there is a bar restaurant known as Hell's Kitchen. And Serena thinks, you know, if a bar doesn't have blackberries, then perhaps a restaurant do. So, Serena goes into Hell's Kitchen and there's some rando there. And Serena says, you know, any chance that you can make a bramble? And the rando starts laughing and says, hey, blackberries are out of season, silly. So Serena very kindly looks at her and says, let me educate you on the global supply chain. 2 hours later, I think Serena was satisfied. The rando hit the road. But then the bartender slid over to Serena and very quietly whispered in her ear that about off the strip, there's a bar where all the bartenders go. It's the bartender's bar. So surely the bartender's bar would have blackberries to make a drink. So we hopped in a car, hit the road down the strip, landed at this place called Herbs and Rye. I walk in by myself, fully expecting to be disappointed, and I say, any chance you can make us a bramble? And the guy was super excited about it, right? So I say, I'll take 6 of them. So we end up, here's us enjoying our bramble cocktails. There's more to this story. It's sweet victory, but there's more to this story. The funniest bits of this story are actually what happens after this. So come talk to us. We'll tell you the full story. Maybe it's not perfectly G-rated, so we're not going to talk about it here today. All right, today we're going to be doing how to do cool stuff in Tableau. So we're going to be doing a collection of tips, tricks, techniques, just some kind of random stuff, and we hope that you learn something. We will be on Salesforce Plus. Thank you, digital audience, and it'll be streaming and on demand. And all the content that we talk about here will be at flerlagetwins.com/coolstuff2024, or you can scan that QR code. Lots of blog posts related to this content. Wanted to say thanks to an awesome community. Thank you to everybody out there, but also thanks to these specific people, because many of our tips were inspired by these folks, and that last one, and many more. I say we get to it. What do you say?
All right, let's do it. All right, so I'm going to start off with some cool stuff with filters here. So we'll give you a couple of quick little tips that you might not be aware of. Here we have a chart showing actually Kevin's son's bowling team. And you can see we have a row for each match date, right? So we might want to allow our users to filter on the date. So we drag a date filter up here. We choose individual dates and we select all the dates. We show that filter. His resolution is really small, so this is hard for me. Wrong button. Show the filter, and of course your users can then sort of select the dates. But what if you just want to sort of default to the last date? That's probably a common problem that we all have, right? So if we edit this filter, there's this handy little option I never knew existed, filter to the latest date. You check that box, it automatically, when you open that workbook, it automatically filters the last date in your data. All right, we can also do this with other types of date filters, right? So if we do just month and year, we can also filter the latest item, and it'll just filter to April in this case. All right, another quick tip. Here we have a Superstore stock chart, right? We all know Superstore, it's our favorite sales store, right? So here's our stock prices, and we've got a filter on dates, so you might want to just try to filter down to the last couple years or something, but we've all seen stock charts online. They have these nice little buttons where you can say, show me 3 months, a year, the last year. So did you know there's a way to do that in Tableau? We can just choose browse periods. It comes up with these little defaults. We can do a week, a month, 3 months. Great little way of just seeing these periods instead of having to fiddle with those date filters. Okay, so something a little bit more involved, right? So here I have a map showing profit ratios by state, a hex map, right? And what I'd like to be able to do is have give my users the ability to jump to like a detailed page and then be able to download that raw data, right? People always at some point will ask you for that raw data. So I might create another sheet or another dashboard like this that has that raw data and probably a download button on it somewhere, right? But I have a lot of workbooks on my Tableau environment. So I don't want to take the same workbook or dashboard and put it into every single workbook, duplicate it multiple times. Ideally, what I'd be able to do is publish this as a separate workbook, and then you use a URL action to jump to that sheet, right? We can do that pretty easily with a URL action, right? But what I'd really like to do is, as I change these filters, send those filters up over that target, right? So what we're going to try to do is set up a URL action that will pass the filters to that target sheet. So I've already pushed these up to the web, and I'm going to have to refresh here. So we have the 2 workbooks here. We have our map and our download, and they're totally separate workbooks. Now here's the trick in building the URL to make this work. Oop, wrong one. All right, so we're going to start with the base URL for that target sheet, that target dashboard with the details, right? Then what we're going to do is add a little question mark to the end, just to signal that we're starting query strings within our URL. And then where the magic happens is this little function. We say region equal filter values of region. That instructs Tableau to pass that region filter over to that target dashboard. But we've got more filters, so we layer those in, we separate them with an ampersand to show separate query strings, and then finally we use this in the URL action. So let's actually show you this. I'll go back to my dashboard, go to my actions, let's edit this URL action, let's zoom in on this a bit, and if we take a look at this URL, we can see those filter values in there. All right, so let's see this in action. We'll come back out to the web. I will change, I'll go back to my map. I'll change my filters a little bit. We'll do just a couple of regions, just one segment, and just one category. All right, now my action is set up to when I click on something, it'll automatically jump over to that dashboard, and we should be able to see that it will pass those filter values exactly as I set them up. So now you can just have one workbook that people can direct to for downloading that raw data.
Woo!
All right.
I think that's weird. Over to Kev. All right, I'm going to do some cool tips to, I don't know, keep it simple. So these are things that I've used to just sort of simplify my process. So we have this data set. It's just an order number, just numeric order number, and we've got profit, very simple. So if I was going to visualize this, maybe I'd start off with a dot strip plot, right? But I think it's a little difficult to see what's happening here. If I hover over this, we'll see it's like 19 marks right there. So I might want to create a jitter plot. If we use a jitter plot, we'll randomize these dots to sort of spread them out. So how I would do that, maybe, well, first thing I might do is just do an inline calculation. Where's those glasses at, Ken? I'm old. I'm 47 years old. I can't see anymore. Random, and let me start over. And I'm just going to type random, open parens, close parentheses, and now we have this jitter plot, right? So we spread these dots out. But random function is not, it's only you can only use it in the file-based data sources and extracts, so I tend to run into issues using it. So Jeff Schaefer, who's sitting right here, he wrote a blog post 10 years ago about different methods of jittering in Tableau. And what it is really creating this sort of random number, pseudo-random number. So it's two calculations. I don't know if Jeff figured this out on his own, but I have no idea what it's doing. And then you use that inside of another calculation. Again, don't know what it's doing. But we can then take this mouse is tough to use here. And then we can then take this random int, put it up here, and then it's a table calculation. So then we go compute using order number, and now we've spread this out, right? So I'm lazy, or we could call it efficient, but it's really laziness. And I don't want to do any of those. So I learned this from an old colleague named Ethan Hahn. We do have an order number. I'm going to throw this order number up here, and that does nothing, right? But instead, I'm going to go to the beginning, and I'm going to type cosine. Yeah, that seems weird. And let's just take the cosine of the order number, and now we have the same thing. 2 steps versus 4 or 5 or 6 with weirdo calculations I can't understand. Here's a chart that I did for Makeover Monday. It was looking at New Year's resolutions and comparing men versus female answers. And the data, well, it was percentages of people. It was a survey. But if we looked at the data, it actually wasn't in percentages. It was just a whole number, an integer. And we could divide it by 100 and then change it to a percent type to get it over to percent, which is what we should do. But again, remember I said I'm lazy, so I'm just going to fix that. I'm going to just choose both of those. I'm going to go to default properties, number format. Instead, see this prefix suffix? I'm just going to put a percent behind it. And boom, I got a percent, right? Now, don't try and do math on that because it's not going to work right. Now, interestingly enough, if you look at just currency, if you want to change the format of your data to currency, let's find this. I'm going to do the same thing, default properties, number format. And I'm going to change this to currency. Well, let's look at it as number first. Number, no prefix, suffix. If you just change it to currency, all it's doing is adding a dollar prefix to it. So it's really the exact same method. Other use cases for prefixes, I've done this on several data visualizations, but this data is looking at different countries over time. The population grows. So 1950, this was 13,000, now it's only 4,000. Jordan was 438,000, now it's over 11 million. It's 25 times the population that it was in 1950. So in this case, I might just take this ratio, go to default properties, number format, and I'll just put a space X behind it. And I think this will just make it a little bit more clear that, hey, now it's 25 times the population. All right, let's look at a diverging bar chart. This is the same data I was just looking at with the New Year's resolutions. We have male on the right, female on the left. To create that diverging bar chart, we're basically taking a positive number or percentage for the females and add a negative to it, so the bar goes to the left instead of the right. But if we're showing our axis, this shows negative percentage. That's kind of a weird. I don't think there's negative 50% of women in the world. So I'm just going to right-click this and format it. And I'm going to come up here to numbers. You'll see it's a percentage now, right? But if I choose something first and then go to custom, you'll have this custom format. Now the key here is anything before the semicolon is a positive number. Anything after a semicolon, which I don't have yet, is a negative number. And anything after a second semicolon is a 0. Let me show you what I'm saying. So this is a positive number. If I add a semicolon and do 0%, nothing's going to change. But if I want to fix, I've done something wrong. What did I do? Oh, I got a colon. God, this is so small, Kev. So if I want to change this negative to a positive, so we have positive amount of people, I can just delete that negative, and now you can see the axis is a positive axis. And in fact, if I add another semicolon, and I want to get rid of that 0% in the middle, I can just replace this with a space, and that 0 disappears. We could do that on both axes so that we don't have any zeros at all. I'll come back to that custom formatting in a moment. If we were to have this chart, this chart's just showing sales versus target, right? Actuals versus target. The blue is showing that I've exceeded the target, so above 44,000 over the target, 4,000 over. Now this one's short, 32,000. If I wanted to build these labels on this chart, how might I do it? Well, probably would start by doing the math. How far away from the target am I? Sales minus the target, or you could do target minus sales, right? And then if we look at this number, it's not a negative or a positive, so I'd probably, take the absolute value of that value I just calculated, right? I could do this in one calculation. And then I'd have a third calculation, right? It would say, if this is equal to 0, then nothing. And if it's, over the target, then give me this little ASCII code. It's just this up arrow. And then the other one, it would be below, right? So this is a lot of steps, right? But let's build it now. So let's go to sum of sales, and we'll put this absolute value here. And then we'll put the little mark here. And then we'll go to labels. I'm getting to a point, I promise you. And then we'll put it here, up there. And now we have this. But we established earlier that I'm lazy, so we don't really need to do all that. I can just go to this initial one. Let me go to this tab here. I could just go to this initial one, go to default properties, number format, and we can do what we just did before. I'm going to go to custom, and we can see here's the semicolon, right? So positive numbers, negative numbers. So I'm going to go in front of this $sign. I'm going to hold Alt and type 31. And my Alt key's not working. How do I do Alt on a freaking laptop? Well, this sucks. I'm gonna copy this. Alt 31 will do it up. What's that? I'm sorry? Windows key period. I'm just gonna copy it. I'm gonna be lazy.
We should have called this section cool stuff for lazy people, Kev.
Cool stuff for lazy people. I like it. All right, we're gonna copy both of these. All right, so we're going to come in here. Now it seems like it's harder to do it this way. We're going to go into number format, hit custom. I'm going to paste in these little arrows. We'll get rid of this one. And I'm going to paste, instead of the parentheses that's representing a negative, I'm going to paste in an arrow that goes down. Get rid of that backwards parentheses, right? So imagine that only took 10 seconds like it should have. And then we could just drag this onto our view, and we don't have to create 3 different calculations to do all of that, right? It looks like I messed up the arrows, but we'll just ignore that for now. And one other last tip. What if I just had this bar chart and I already had it set up and I didn't want to color the bars at all? Maybe the color was too intense. Maybe I didn't want it to be so dramatic. I can actually create these, use Unicode characters that have color built into them, right? So just these Unicode characters that I copied from the web, and I can just throw that on my view, and we'll make it a little bit bigger. And we've noted these as red and blue just in a totally different way, just by copying pre-colored Unicode characters. All right, Ken.
All right, thanks, Kev. All right, everyone familiar with the order of operations? This doesn't sound, it's not like a fun topic, is it? Well, if you're not familiar with it, get familiar with it. You are going to use it, you're going to run into problems with it. So what I'm going to do is talk about some cool stuff with the order of operations. I'm going to share some of the most common problems you'll run into with the order of operations, as well as a couple of really cool little hacks that we can use for it. So, quick introduction to order of operations is literally the order of way things compute in Tableau, filters, and different other types of calculations and things like that. Extract filters compute first, all the way down at the bottom are trend lines and reference lines, right? So one of the most common problems that you will run into with the order of operations is when you start using level of detail calculations. Who uses level of detail calculations? All right, yeah, at some point you're gonna have to use LOD. So here we have a calculation showing for each customer the minimum order date, the first order that they placed, right? So that uses a fixed LOD, but we might want to be able to filter down to, say, category. So we have a filter on category. Now watch these dates as I change the filter. It really does nothing. Those dates are staying the same, right? So when you have something like this, it's a pretty good indication that you've got an order of operations problem. So what I always do is just sort of map what I'm doing onto the order of operations, right? So I've got a fixed LOD that computes at one point, and then we've got a dimension filter on category, right? That dimension filter computes after the LOD. So what's happening is it's looking at the entire data set, getting the minimum order date for each customer, and only after that filtering by that category, right? So that category has no impact on it. So what do we need to do to fix that problem? We need to find a way to move that dimension filter up ahead of the fixed LOD. And we can do that using a context filter, right? So a context filter is a special type of filter that computes before fixed LODs and other things. So we right click here, we do add to context. Now, when we change the filter, we can see that our dates change as well, right? So that will probably be the most common problem you run into with the order of operations. But here's another very common one, top end filters. So we have a chart showing our top 15 customers by sales, and we're using a top end filter on customers. So you can see top 15 by the sum of sales, right? But maybe we want to look at just specific years. So we add a filter on the year of order date, and now watch what happens when I change to 2021. All of a sudden, our top 15 is only top 12, and then these numbers seem awfully low for our top 15 customers. So again, this is an indicator of an order of operations problem. So let's map what we're doing. We have a top end filter that's computing before the dimension filter, right? So it's looking at the entire data set, grabbing the 15 top overall customers, and then we're filtering by year. So what's happened here is of those 15 customers, only 12 of them actually bought something in 2021, right? And that's why the numbers are out of whack. So what's the solution to this? Any guesses? Context filter, right? So we changed that to a context filter. Let's go up to our year. Let's filter these to all the values first of all. And let's add that to context. And now when we switch this to just 2021, we should get a top 15 and some much more reasonable numbers. Okay, so those are the common ones, but let's talk about some cool little hacks that we can apply. What we're going to look at is table calculations. So here I have the top. I have all the cities and states in the in the country, and I'm ranked them. So I'm using a rank table calculation. You can see that right here on the rows. They give us that number. Okay, so we're in California, so maybe I want to see how California looks, right? So I filter on California, and that works great. I can see LA and San Francisco at the top, but sometimes you might actually want to show their sort of overall rank. Like in this case, maybe I want to see Los Angeles, I want to keep that 2, and San Francisco, I want to keep that 4. So here's a really, really cool trick for doing that. What we're going to do is we're going to use this lookup function. Well, I guess we should look at the order of operations first. Let's look at that real quick. If we look at the order of operations, we can see we've got that dimension filter, that is our state filter, and that computes before our rank table calculation. So if we want to find a way to get that filter to compute after a table calculation, we only have one option. We need to force that to be a table calc filter. right? So here's the little trick. We're going to create a calculated field that looks like this. And we're using lookup, which is a table calculation. It basically just goes back or forward in your data. And we're telling it to go back 0 rows and return the state province. So essentially just returns the state and province unaffected. But when we use this as a filter, let's just do all for now. When we use this as a filter, it's a table calc filter. So it will compute after everything else is computed. And we see now when we filter to California, it maintains those original ranks. Really cool trick. You might run into need to do that every now and then. Now you know how to do it. All right, one more thing with table calculations. We have this band here. I love these big angry numbers, right? They give you a good big picture of what's going on. We're showing sales growth 2022 to 2023 here. And I'm going to show you how we can use a table calc trick to make this work. So you might start off by creating a table like this that has your year, your sales, and then I've just done a quick table calculation on sales to get our percent difference here. So that's where this 30 is coming from. So if you think about this logically, we just need to find a way to isolate this 30 to create that band, right? Well, then maybe I just filter out and remove 2022, but we have an order of operations problem. That table calc is computing, or the filter is computing before the table calculation. 2022 data isn't available for it to calculate that percent difference. So we could do something like we did this last time, but instead, let's use this handy little last function. Last just counts the rows back from the final row in the partition, right? So last here would be 0, this would be 1. There's also the opposite of this, which is first, that counts from the beginning. So we're just saying if last is 0, this row here, then true, otherwise false. We're going to drop this on as a filter. We're going to filter to true. This is a table calc filter, so it'll compute after the table calculation. So our 30 stays there. Now we can just hide the headers on these fields, filter out our sales measure, make this entire view, increase the size, and now we have a lovely band using table calc filter hacks. All right, back to Kevin.
The first time in history during our presentation, we're ahead of time. Like,
Are we
usually
really?
Take up,
Nice.
extra time on top of the 40 minutes we're given, but looks like we're going to be.
I will say while Kevin's getting set up that he spent so much time on that little PowerPoint puppet show that I didn't have time for some of my favorite tips. So on Tuesday, we're going to be doing an interview on the Salesforce Plus, and we'll share some bonus tips. So check that out if you want to see some of the tips that didn't make it into this presentation.
PowerPoint puppet show? This was not set up, by the way, so I spent about 100 hours on that PowerPoint puppet show. Hope you appreciated it. All right, I showed this chart before. Again, New Year's resolutions, male and female, and when I did this for Makeover Monday, I showed this barbell chart, DNA chart, whatever you want to call it, and it really was intended, I just wanted to look at the differences between male and female responses. So I built this chart, and it's a circle mark here for the male and female circles, and then this area behind it is a line mark, just connecting the two, right? But what I really want is, if you saw the original, it looked like this. See how that line sort of envelops those two circle marks. So let's do that on mine, because I put on my old man glasses. Let's go back to that, and if I go to the line mark and go to size, the size is as big as it can go. I can make it smaller, but how do I make it bigger than that? Well, a little trick. I just type an inline calculation here, and I'm going to do average of 1 and hit enter. And then I'm going to move this from detail to size. Watch my line mark. Whoa, it gets gigantic. So you can get larger marks by simply putting average of 1 on the size, and now I have some ability to resize it.
You can also use min or max as well. I don't know why you use average.
All right, did you know that there's 3, well, let me set this up, okay. Signing colors. So I've got this bar chart looking at sales by subcategory, and maybe I want to look at, I've got the wrong, here we are. Maybe I want to look at the returns, right? So I put this return value, and it tells me in red which ones were returned and which ones were not returned. But maybe I'm interested in slicing that a little bit further. I want to put segment on there too, and we'll color it by both segment and returns, right? So I'll know all my different segments and all my returns. And so I put that right on color, and well, it's only showing segments now. Let's try that again. I don't know what happened to returned. Let's put returned back on color. And what you see is happening is every time I put another pill on color, it's replacing the one that's there. Well, you can in fact do that, and there's 3 different ways that you can do that. So the first way I'm going to show you, I'm going to drag segment to detail. So now you have returned on color, you have segment on detail, and then if I click here, all I got to do is change this to color, and boom, we now have whether they're returned or not, as well as the segment. Now, you can do this a couple different ways. I can just select them both, like this, hold the shift key, drag them both out there, and it'll do the same thing. And the last way is, if I have one on there already, I can just start to drag this segment, and then if I hit shift right in the middle, drop it on there, it'll do the exact same thing. So handy 3 little ways to add multiple colors to a chart. We showed this bowling dashboard before. My son's a bowler. He second in the tournament yesterday. Good for Riley. Nobody cares about that, but I created this dashboard that allows you to pick a name from the dashboard, and it highlights that person, right? You see Riley highlighted in red. This is 2023 data, not 2024. But somehow my parameter's broken. There's no values in there. I don't know what happened. So I have this list parameter, and what I would need to do is type out a list of somebody's names or feed that in from the data. But I have the data open here, so let's just grab that. All these bowlers here. And I'll go back to it, and I want to paste it in here. So it says click to add, right? So I'm going to click it and add it. And unfortunately, it added everybody, all 12 bowlers' names all on one line. So I'll hit escape here, and we'll remove that. So the trick here, if you want to paste values from the spreadsheet into a parameter, is to not click where it says click to add, is to click anywhere else. So if I click display as or somewhere over here, and then I hit Control V, it will populate that list. That took me like an hour to figure out one day. So
I'm pretty sure I showed you that one.
You maybe can't. Ken's taking credit for my tips now. All right, so here's a chart that I did a while ago. Silliness, probably not good for business, but whatever. Looks cool. And it is showing just data, win-loss data, and I called it streaking. It was all about win-loss streaks in the Major League Baseball. But that's not about the chart, it's about the tooltip. So I like my tooltips to be really, really beautiful and easy to read, so I like to put these like little separators between them. That's another ASCII code, by the way, Alt 290, I think, Alt 190, something like that. But if you're like me and a perfectionist, that tooltip's driving me crazy because the alignment in that tooltip. So let's just zoom in and show you what I'm talking about. So that's the tooltip, but if I kind of color code this, you'll see the data starts at different points, and that eats me alive. So I don't want that. So we can fix that. 2 little tips in one here. First, if you want to edit a tooltip, you don't have to go to the sheet to edit the tooltip. All you got to do is select the sheet and go to Worksheet Tooltip. Then you can edit the tooltip. And then I'm just going to hit Control A to select everything. And just like we used to have, I remember this from like WordPerfect back in 1992, you can just slide this thing over. And when we're done, and I hover over this, we now have this really nice alignment. To show you it close up, there's the difference, and my perfectionist in me likes the one on the right a whole heck of a lot better. All right, this is a crazy tip that I just don't get, but let's look at the hierarchy first. So we've got a horizontal container, horizontal, and then for some reason we have 3 more horizontal containers, and within those horizontal containers is just one sheet. So essentially we don't need these additional horizontal containers. To kind of make this a little more clear, one big horizontal container, and then we have these sort of unnecessary gray containers that have one sheet in there. No reason to have a container typically if you only have one sheet in it. So if we want to remove this, how would I do that? And maybe I'd start moving these sheets around, but there's a really weird trick. If I just hover over the sort of where these things meet, see that double arrow there? And then if I right click, this mouse is really finicky. Then I right click, I get this option I've never seen before. Click to combine layout containers, and we do it again here. Boom, that whole layer of containers are completely gone. All right, last one. Oh, I'm gonna need this, I forgot to sign in. So, how many times have you been working, you have multiple sheets, so these things are sized exactly the same, but I wanna make a change. I wanna make these a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit bigger. Let's make them a little bit bigger, right? And then I gotta go to this sheet and somehow make it the exact same size. Well, if you can only snap into place at 25%, 50%, if you wanna make it the same, good luck. Right, you never, no matter how much tweaking you do, you're probably never gonna get it the exact same size. See, those are totally different sizes. So, a little trick. I'm gonna go to web edit. I forgot to sign in beforehand, so bear with me. It's signed in, that's dumb. Signed in as my work, so let me do this again. Next time I'll do this right. That's not the right password. Come on, Kev. All right. Now, if I edit this, remember, all I want to do is resize these things. If I hit size, drum roll, 70. Well, let's put in 40. We'll put in 40 for that one. Boom, resize. Come over to this one, size, 40. And guess what? Now we've actually got them to be the right size, consistent across the dashboard. I think that's generally it. Let's, where's my little thing? Again, we have 30 minutes to spare. It's not in presentation mode. We're complete newbies to this, Ken. Thank you. Again, Tuesday, this will be broadcasted, and the people that are watching, thank you for watching. And we'll be on demand at Salesforce Plus. Again, all these tips can be seen at flerlagetwins.com/coolstuff2024 using that QR code. You can also get session summaries from Einstein, by the way, super cool. And Ken mentioned earlier when he was cracking jokes about my PowerPoint puppet show, we do have bonus tips. There'll be an interview with us on Tuesday as well, so please check that out. We'd also love to meet everybody. There's so many people we haven't met. We'd love to meet people. We're going to be in the Data Village. If anybody wants to come by and say hi, we'd love to chat with you. We're going to do that right after this.
Yep.
So we'd love to meet you. And of course, survey. You can win some coffee, I think. And thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.